Right now, we're entering a time that's critical for Bitcoin. The halving is set to occur in April of 2024. When this happens, Bitcoin can go parabolic, shooting up over $100,000. But there's something that you absolutely need to understand if you're going to be successful in profiting huge from Bitcoin. This video is going to break down the exact percentage of Bitcoin that one should be holding in their portfolio, but in order for me to explain that, I'm going to be answering multiple other questions that were submitted by you earlier this week, discussing things like holding the Bitcoin ETF versus just regular Bitcoin itself, understanding the risks involved, especially if Congress were to just make Bitcoin illegal, how to invest in Bitcoin safely, and then when the best time to buy Bitcoin is and where to buy it as well. Like I said, I'm going to start with what percentage of your portfolio might be a good solid amount to have in Bitcoin, but to really understand why, you're going to want to hear the answers to the rest of the questions in the rest of this video. And if you have some burning question, you could always ask in the comment section down below, and I'll either answer it down below or might pick it for a video itself. My name is Nolan Govea. My students call me Professor G, and I made this channel to make investing simplified. The first question asked, I'm getting FOMO with the upcoming all-time highs of Bitcoin. Afraid to lose money though. What percentage of your portfolio do you invest into Bitcoin? So for each person, this should definitely be different. You're going to hear financial advisors and even myself say something like 1 to 5% of your entire portfolio could be allocated into Bitcoin. If you have $1 million in your portfolio though, 1 to 5% is $10,000 to $50,000. And I definitely don't recommend putting that type of money into something that you don't understand. So first thing you need to do is very much understand Bitcoin and then get behind it, because it is a volatile asset, and if you don't understand the technology and the long-term thinking of this, those dips are going to be hard to stomach. After doing some research by reading Bitcoin Evangelism by Brian DeMint, or doing a deep dive on reputable Bitcoin YouTubers' videos, then you need to figure out a suitable amount that you wouldn't mind setting into a very risky investment. Until Bitcoin is so easy and proven, something like being able to just use a button to send money like Venmo, this asset is definitely going to be shaky as far as price. For me personally, I have about 10% of my entire portfolio in Bitcoin personally, but that's because it's grown so much. As far as actual money put into Bitcoin, that's closer to maybe 2%, maybe 3% of my entire investable amount. But again, this thing has grown a lot since when I first started putting money into it. For any beginners, I say start with just $10 and throw it into Bitcoin and then just watch it for a month. This is going to give you at least some skin in the game, enough that you're going to want to actively watch it, but not enough that like if you lost that amount that you would be hurting too badly. You definitely don't want to put any substantial amount of money into any investment you don't understand, much less Bitcoin, so definitely do the research on that first. The next couple questions said, I prefer holding Bitcoin in the ETF form with IBIT. I'd just rather be able to be on the asset price increase long term without having to worry about holding Bitcoin itself. And then, would you prefer Bitcoin ETFs over actual Bitcoin itself? First of all, as far as holding those Bitcoin ETFs and preferring to do that rather than holding the Bitcoin itself, I do see this as an understandable opinion. I personally would rather invest in Bitcoin itself because I would rather have more control and actually own the actual asset. But I could totally see why somebody wouldn't necessarily need that. When you invest in Bitcoin on, say, Robinhood or even the Bitcoin ETF like IBIT, which is the iShares Bitcoin ETF, or BITB, which is the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF, or even FBTC, which is the Fidelity Advantage Bitcoin ETF. When you invest in these, you're basically investing in the mirror of the price of Bitcoin. You're not actually buying Bitcoin itself as the asset. If you wanted to transfer your Bitcoin onto a different exchange or onto a wallet or give it to somebody, you couldn't do so because you never actually bought the Bitcoin. You're basically just buying a mirror of the price of where it goes. Kind of like the same thing we do when we buy stocks. It's not like you're actually buying a piece of Apple and you can pay somebody with your Apple stock. You're just watching where the stock goes, and then when it goes up in price, hopefully you sell and make some profit. One thing that was very interesting to me and that I've been watching very closely and will continue to watch is that the Bitcoin ETFs are actually appreciating less on average than Bitcoin itself. IBIT is up a little over 48%, while Bitcoin is actually up 56.68% year to date. This is probably because of the fees associated with owning IBIT, but that is a difference of 8%, which is pretty huge. So for these reasons, I choose to invest in actual Bitcoin, like to have control of it myself, but I do see the merit in possibly holding one of these Bitcoin ETFs in a Roth IRA. Especially if you're younger and you have time to let that thing appreciate, why not let it appreciate in a tax-free format? That could really be something interesting. If the US government can't print more Bitcoin like they do dollar bills, isn't it a risky investment because Congress will just pass a law making Bitcoin illegal? A lot of people have definitely jumped on this train, but there is no concern here in my opinion, and here's why. As Bitcoin is decentralized, the network as such cannot be shut down by one government. However, governments have attempted to ban cryptocurrencies before, or at least to restrict their use in the respective jurisdiction. Governments could still try to jointly ban Bitcoin, yet in the long term, it's much more likely that governments will impose regulations to protect individual investors and to collect taxes. The smartest move for any government, especially the US government, is to just tax us on this. They're fine with the asset going up and us making some money because then that makes them money. The other reason why the US won't make this illegal, because they own more of it than almost any other person, country, or business. Over the years, it's come to light that the federal government has accumulated a massive stockpile of Bitcoin, approximately 200,000 BTC. If Bitcoin were to go up astronomically and it became something like the world's currency, the US would be very well positioned because they would have one of the most amounts of it, and so they would continue to be one of the world leaders. So they're not worried, and I'm not worried about that. How do we invest in Bitcoin safely? The way that you're going to invest in Bitcoin safely is the exact same way that you need to invest in stocks safely or real estate safely. There's 3 basic rules. First is understand fully whatever you invest your money into. That's pretty self-explanatory. Number 2 would be don't invest any money that you absolutely need in the near future. If you're saving up to buy a house next year, or even want to buy a car, or you want to pay off loans, that's not the money that you want to be investing with, because when you invest, there's risk that could go down. Number 3, invest with and buy from a reputable or credible source, and then safely store your asset. There's more on this in a little bit, but just know that if it's on a shady site or something that's given away way too much and it seems way too good to be true, it most likely is. When we're dealing with things like money, you definitely want to think safety, think reputable, go with the boring looking company here. This one's a fun one. When is the best time to sell Bitcoin? Now this is similar to investing in stocks as well. The best time to sell is at the absolute top. Who knows when the absolute top is? No one. But smart investors have a number and they know exactly when they're going to sell, or at least sell a portion of whatever it is that they're invested in, so that they can start to take some profits. Right now, we're entering a time that's critical for Bitcoin. The halving is set to occur in April of 2024. When this happens, Bitcoin can go parabolic, shooting up over $100,000. But there's something that you absolutely need to understand if you're going to be successful in profiting huge from Bitcoin. As you can see here, directly after the halving, Bitcoin skyrockets in price over the next couple months to a year. But then historically, it's also then slumped. Nobody knows what number Bitcoin's going to hit or when it's going to hit its high. So if you just say something like, well, I'm just going to sell when Bitcoin hits $250,000, it may only get to $150,000. And since you're waiting to sell, then it's going to drop. And at that point, you will have missed out on some good profit. You need to figure out for yourself, what's a good number? How much percent increase will you be happy with, at least taking a portion of some profits, just to make sure that you don't lose any money? For me, I figured that a good number to start taking just a bit of profit is when crypto or Bitcoin hits 25% above its last all-time high. Its all-time high from the last cycle in 2021 was about 69,000. So 25% of a gain from that would put it at about 86,250. I believe Bitcoin will go much higher than that, but taking some profits, like 10% at that point, makes it so that I'm making some absolute profit. I'm happy with that, and it puts me in control. Where's the best place to buy Bitcoin? The main thing, like I was talking about before, is that you want to buy on reputable platforms. There's always going to be scams out there or companies trying to promise you way too much. If they say something like, we'll give you 20% APY to park your money here, there's probably something shady going on there. The most reputable and safest, in my opinion, are Swan, River, and Coinbase. Coinbase is the biggest and safest with the most regulation due to it being in the United States and a public company. The thing you need to be aware though is that anytime you hear of these crypto hacks that happen, they're not hacking the Bitcoin system, they're hacking other cryptocurrencies. And so exchanges that hold other crypto coins might be more susceptible to these types of hacks. And Coinbase does hold a bunch of different coins. Swan and River only hold Bitcoin, and you can only invest in Bitcoin with them, so they're much safer. The absolute safest way to invest in Bitcoin is to buy it from one of these three and then move it to a cold storage wallet. I'm not gonna go over that whole process in this video, but if you just look up on YouTube cold storage wallet or Ledger Nano X, you'll be able to learn exactly how to use these wallets, and that's what I use personally. Watch this video with Bitcoin expert Brian DeMint, or watch this video to keep you investing strong and keep you going on your financial freedom journey.